Welcome back to part 3 of Whistle While You Work, chapter 7 of a Thora Silentblade tale. While the commotion with the Sturges was happening, the wizard had tended to the unconscious miner on the floor. He would live, but he wasn't ready to come about just yet. Heaving the stout dwarven miner up on their shoulders, the group carried him back to the other shelter, where his companions could treat his wounds and nurse him back to health. There were still other miners out there to find. Thanks to his earlier shenanigans, Dwayne had managed to explore quite a few of the mining tunnels in the area. He had even found another way out of the mine and another shelter door, though he had not had the chance to inspect it yet. Following the turtle's guidance, they headed in that direction, passing through a large cavern. The walls and ceiling were coated in thick webbing. A desiccated arm stuck out from a webbed cocoon, and the bodies of many long dead sturges were trapped in various spots in the chamber. Putting the clues together, it seemed to reinforce the idea that something less than ghostly was haunting the tunnels. Thora peered intently into the surroundings, trying to find a sign of whatever had left this webbing, but could see nothing lying in wait. Perhaps whatever creature had left this had abandoned this hunting ground? Finally arriving at the steel door that Dwayne had noticed earlier, the group repeated their greetings and convinced the dwarven miners to come with them to the other shelter. Together, the miners would prove to be able to protect each other much better than apart. It would also make it a lot easier to find them later. The adventurers even took the time to go outside to the miner they had found along the side of the road and bring him to the shelter. It was getting quite crowded in there, but it seemed like quite the festive mood was starting as the miners were reunited safely. "Do you think that's all of them?" inquired Thora, having lost track of the count of the miners. "At least a few more," replied Zarek, "assuming the old miner in the shelter had his count right." That meant searching deeper into the mines. Doing so seemed safe enough at first glance. The dwarves had done good work at clearing the way and laying tracks down, so the way was clear. Unfortunately, in their absence from the mine, several critters had decided to set up shop. There were quite a few scorpions, which apparently were quite easy to smash, as Dwayne discovered while skewering one with his peg leg. Annoyances at most, but they unfortunately served as quite the distraction. While trying to clear out the pests, a loud growl echoed towards them from their right. Dark shapes moved towards them from just outside the reach of their torches. The charging figures came at them from the dark, snarling as they descended upon their flank. Dwayne did his best to keep them back as the others were still dealing with scorpions, but Thora knew that couldn't last long. Seeing a surge of electrical energy leap from the turtle's claws into the nearest beast, the dwarf took advantage and barged forward, both blades flying. The first swing sunk deep into the gnoll's neck, nearly cutting the head clear off, but getting stuck in his shoulder. The follow-through from Thor's other blade severed the spinal column, leaving the body to crumple to the floor. The soldier's nose flared with an increased breathing rate, eyes scanning around for the next threat. Thor didn't have to wait long. A hyena rushed in, flanking the dwarf from the left. The spear-wielding creature on the other side slammed deep into Thor's unprotected side, just as an arrow slammed into the dwarven warrior's shoulder. The surge of adrenaline from the charge a few seconds ago drained away quickly as Thor's vision got cloudy. Around the soldier were the sounds of combat. Thor could tell that something was happening, that the others were fighting nearby, but the dwarf was relying purely on instincts to survive at this point. Somehow, Thor managed to land a strike through the haze, and it sounded as if the others were pressing forward, but eventually, Thor couldn't focus anymore and missed a parry. The piercing end of a spear slid through a gap in the dwarf's armor, and, for a moment, all went dark. It was beginning to be a feeling Thor was getting almost too used to. The unconscious dwarf wasn't sure how long had passed, but suddenly the world came rushing in, along with a drowning feeling. Thor quickly realized that a liquid was being poured down forcefully by a shape above. The sight of Dwayne's beak this close was enough to bring anyone to their senses. "Get up, mammal," whispered the wizard. with what might have been a smile. Rolling along the ground to the side, Thora leapt up defensively, guarding against the spear-wielding gnoll for a moment. "Did you miss me?" taunted Thora, feeling suddenly very confident after the potion had taken effect. Kneeling for a low blow, it took only a single precise swing to take the gnoll out at the knees. Thor confidently strode forward towards the archer that had stuck him with an arrow a moment ago, a low growl building up from deep inside the dwarf. You would not have been able to tell this was the same figure that had been lying unconscious on the mine floor only a moment ago. Leaping forward, along with Thora, the party made short work of the remaining hunters. The lone gnoll archer and hyena were no match for the party's focused power. Fittingly, it was the dwarf who had the final word, as Thora drove both blades into the final gnoll's back, ending it. The pounding of battle still filled Thor's ears as blood pumped quickly through the dwarf. In the moment, it was almost like a drug, a feeling of euphoria mixed with fear, anxiety, and bloodlust. It was sometimes hard for Thor to rationalize that part of themselves, especially against the calm dwarf who would silently work the smithy for days on end without complaints, or spend evenings with the yarn and knitting needles. From here, finding the last dwarf was almost trivial. The final shelter was easily found, and the remaining dwarves were more than happy to group up with the others and enjoy each other's company. At least for now, the immediate threat of the gnolls was over, though there were still the nuisances crawling around in some of the tunnels. The real threat they needed to focus on was whatever had made those webs and was causing miners to disappear. They had been fortunate not to come across it yet, but that luck could only last so long. First, they needed a plan. Then, it was time to hunt it down.